Since childhood, Stuart was a spoiled boy. His father owned several car dealerships and never denied him anything. Mr. Hamilton hoped that the business would eventually pass on to his dreamy son. However, Stuart was interested in something entirely different. He loved to draw and play the guitar, dreaming of becoming a well-known artist or musician in the future. Years went by, and he still enthusiastically told his father about concerts, favourite bands, and new exhibitions at the gallery. "Stuart, have you ever thought about getting married?" his father asked him one day, hoping to rationalise his 30-year-old son and set him on the path of a businessman. "I haven't really thought about it. Why?" Stuart replied carelessly. "I have a business partner with a wonderful daughter who knows how to handle business. She came to the meetings several times in place of her father and took over business," his father suggested. "Are you insinuating that it's time for me to do adult things at your car dealership again?" The guy grimaced. He didn't like the whole idea. They already had a good fortune. Why should he get involved in his father's business and reject the idea of his band? Moreover, things were just beginning to go uphill. Stuart found the whole band, and they wanted to get together for the first rehearsal soon. "No, do what you want." My father reacted calmly and unexpectedly. "I have another plan. Marry Laura. We'll unite the companies." "Are you kidding me?" The son's jaw dropped in amazement. "Son," Mr. Hamilton replied calmly, "I see that you are not interested in business, and I am tired and getting old, but I don't want to give up my business. Let my partner develop it. Marriage is necessary so that our half is behind you. In fact, Laura will be doing everything, and if you'll have children, the business will pass on to them later. Think about it, son. It's a good idea." With these words, 60-year-old Mr. Hamilton got up from his armchair and left his son's apartment, leaving him to digest such a proposal. Stuart was confused. On the one hand, he understood his father's position. All his life he had felt that he was a disappointment to his father. Stuart couldn't comprehend all the workings of the car dealership, such as what services to offer and at what prices to avoid financial collapse and lack of consumers. He was not familiar with concepts like indexing or other terms that casually passed through his father's speech. But Laura was familiar with them. According to his father, Laura could save the business and even develop it, and they wouldn't lose anything because they would enter into marriage. But there was another side to the question. Stuart felt like a simple object, a means of payment for a transaction, and he didn't like it at all. Could his own father sell him for the business? Meanwhile, Mr. Hamilton was driving around the evening city. He decided to leave his son alone so that no one would interfere with his decision-making. The man understood that this was a critical step in his son's life, and unfortunately, he never learned how to make decisions. But how will Stuart live on in this cruel world? Mr. Hamilton loved his son, and he wanted the best future for him. When the businessman met Laura, he realized that this strict girl could make his son a real man who knows exactly what he needs and how to achieve it. Unfortunately, by the age of 30, Stuart never learned this important quality. If he left the business to Stuart, he would abandon it and spend all the money on entertainment. The amount was not small, of course, but the world is huge. Mr. Hamilton sighed, lowered the window and lighted a cigarette. He rarely smoked, trying to keep his health, but his heart was uneasy for his son. The next day, Stuart called his father. He had almost not slept at night, thinking about what decision to make. His head still buzzed with thoughts. He thought about his future and what this marriage could give him. His father had said that the girl was pretty, and it was unlikely that he would cheat. But on the other hand, Stuart felt like a changeable coin. "Hello?" His father's voice came from the receiver. "Dad, hi," Stuart coughed. "I've been thinking about your words." "And?" "Well, I can't just make an offer at the first meeting like that. I haven't even seen her once." The son shouted in despair. Mr. Hamilton sighed heavily. "Don't worry about it. I'll talk to my partner if you agree. He will explain everything to his daughter. No one will force you." Well, if that's the case. Stuart's heart beat so hard, as if he were called to the board for the first time in school and he didn't learn the material. "If so, Dad, then okay. I'll do as you said." "Excellent decision, son." Approval was heard in his father's voice. Stuart took it as the highest compliment. They said goodbye, and Stuart began to get ready for his first rehearsal with his new band. Several days had passed, and Mr. Hamilton was negotiating with his partner. The deal was profitable, so Mr. Beckman agreed to talk to his daughter. Laura immediately understood what a good offer it was and gave a positive answer. She was not interested in her future husband. He was more like a business partner. If necessary, she would buy out his share and divorce. Mr. Hamilton did care about his son, of course, but if Stuart turned out to be a burden, Laura would not carry him on her shoulders. And, judging by the fact that his son, at 30 years old, did not participate in his father's business, it seemed to be the case. However, this did not scare Laura. At only 24 years old, she had her whole life ahead of her and could afford to spend some time on love games with benefits in the future. In some ways, it all reminded her of investing. She was already familiar with these matters. In the evening, Mr. Hamilton dropped by to his son. They enjoyed dinner while discussing the situation. "We are concluding a merger deal," Mr. Hamilton announced importantly. "I talked to my partner and his daughter. Laura understood the situation and agreed to the marriage. Your acquaintance is scheduled for tomorrow, so try to make a good impression." Stuart frowned. "It's strange, Father. I feel like an instrument." "We've already discussed this," Mr. Hamilton said. "Yes, I know, and I understand why you took this step. But I don't want to tie my life to someone I don't love." "In our time, marriages for calculation are much more common than you think." "And I understand that. Do you think I haven't thought this over? I may not understand your business, but I'm not a complete idiot." "No one says you are an idiot. If you can't get along after the meeting, we agreed to cancel the deal. So, nothing will change in your life if you don't want it to," Mr. Hamilton said. These words made Stuart believe that his father was not treating him like a tool for the deal. He still gave him a choice, even if that choice could ruin his business. Such a gesture touched Stuart, and he decided to look for any positive trait in Laura that he could hold on to. Stuart couldn't fall asleep at night. His father had said that the girl would be waiting for him in the restaurant at table 17, but he never showed him the photo. Is she really that ugly? By morning, Stuart hadn't imagined a bleak future for himself, and even thought of not going to the restaurant, but he remembered that his father had given him a chance to refuse. "I'll go for my dad's sake," decided Stuart, and went to the meeting. Approaching the hostess, Stuart asked, "Hello, I have a table number 17 reserved. Could you please show me to it?" "Yes, of course." The woman behind the counter smiled warmly. Gloomy thoughts still plagued Stuart until he finally saw Laura. She turned out to be a petite girl with cute red curls. However, her face was quite stern, and the glasses gave her an air of seriousness. She was sitting with a laptop and drinking lemonade with ice. "Hi," the guy greeted her. "You're Laura, aren't you?" The girl looked at him over her glasses. "Hi, yes, and you're Stuart, I guess." She reached out her hand. "Yes." Stuart lightly touched her fingers with his lips. "Oh, you are a gentleman," the girl smiled. "Sit down. Let's choose some food. I haven't even had breakfast yet." "What have you been up to?" asked the guy. He liked Laura, and in fact he even felt that she was already in love a little. "Business," the girl shrugged. "I want pasta and salad," she decided quickly. "And Stuart scanned the menu with his eyes. "Try the same thing," the girl suggested. The guy agreed, not even realizing that cunning Laura was testing his resolve. Her test did not disappoint her. She was ready for the fact that Stuart was not the most decisive person in the world, although perhaps it was still too early to draw conclusions. By the end of their first meeting, Laura had a clear opinion of Stuart. Although he was a fairly pleasant conversationalist, he was an extremely unserious person. She could not rely on him in the long term. Laura had already decided that she would buy out his share and get a divorce in a couple of years. But for now, the deal seemed profitable. However, Stuart was head over heels in love. The girl's sternness did not discourage him at all. On the contrary, her curls shimmered so beautifully in the rays of the setting sun, and how much she knew. Stuart felt a little ashamed of himself and his creative nature. "I have a question for you," said Stuart as they went to the park to chat a little more. "Okay," said the girl and smiled. "How can such an attractive girl still be without a crowd of suitors?" asked Stuart. Laura looked at him strangely. "Stuart, listen," the girl said as she sat down on the bench. "Our marriage will be a calculated one. You don't need to pretend to be in love or make any compliments." "But," Stuart felt like he had just been hit by a cold shower. "But I'm not pretending anything." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes, I really like you." Stuart sat down next to the girl and took her delicate hand in his. "I hope I didn't leave you indifferent either." Something stirred in Laura's chest. She didn't want to offend or hurt this guy. He seemed to have really fallen in love. Laura couldn't lie so blatantly about her feelings, so she could only purse her lips. "I see." Stuart withdrew his hands and sighed heavily. "Can you tell me why?" "Well," the girl sighed too, "you seemed to me indecisive. You know, it's not so bad. A soft character is much better than mine, prickly." Stuart became visibly upset, and Laura felt sorry for him. "Listen, I agreed to get married. If you do too, I think I can change my mind." "As soon as I saw you, I decided to get married," Stuart unexpectedly replied. "Here," Laura smiled. "That was a firm decision. Well, I have to go home. I'd like to review the quarterly financial reports." "Laura, you know," Stuart suddenly said, "a man can not only run a business. Come to my first concert. I have my own band. Maybe you'll like it." "I don't even know," the girl answered doubtfully. "I don't really like noisy gatherings." "Did you want to have a wedding in silence?" Stuart grinned slyly. Laura smiled. "You got me. Okay, I'll come. Text me the address." "Of course." They said goodbye. Stuart was only thinking about how to impress Laura. He wasn't going to give up and was determined to win the girl over. But Laura had strange feelings. Almost for the first time in her life, she was completely lost. After all, Stuart seemed so soft to her, and as they said goodbye, he literally changed before her eyes. Did her impression of him turn out to be deceptive? Stuart rehearsed with his band for a whole month. He was determined to impress Laura, to make her see a strong and decisive man in him. He may not be a business shark, but he is strong in something else. The guy found a club with live music that provided platforms for aspiring musicians to perform. Of course, it was for free, but Stuart himself was ready to pay just to have a place to perform. In addition, he thought that after a few successful performances, they could move up to the next level, namely selling tickets to their show. And thus he too would become a businessman, but he would still be in the field he likes. In short, Stuart was up to his ears in business and fully immersed himself in it. One evening, Stuart's worried father came to visit him. "Thank God you're okay," exclaimed Mr. Hamilton as he entered. "Why wouldn't I be okay?" Stuart wondered. "Are you kidding at me?" grumbled his father. "Your phone has been unreachable for a week. You haven't logged into social media. What are you even doing?" "Oh, that!" The son rubbed his forehead. "It's probably dead. Don't worry about me. I'm just rehearsing a lot right now. I want to give my first concert." "You should have told me about it earlier," said his father. "Okay, I see that you're fine. If you need anything, call me. But don't disappear like that again, okay?" "I'll try my best, but lovers don't watch the clock," Stuart grinned. "Are you in love?" "With whom?" Mr. Hamilton's eyes widened. "With Laura, who else?" Stuart replied. "Phew!" The father breathed a sigh of relief. "I thought there are so many girls out there." No, I only need her," Stuart firmly declared. Mr. Hamilton was surprised by the changes that had taken place in his son. In this month, Stuart had grown up. He became more serious. Though his father considered his music a simple hobby, progress was visible. Stuart had determined to charm Laura and was doing everything in his power to do so. His behaviour pleased his father. It was a manifestation of decisiveness, which Stuart had always lacked. The day of the concert arrived. Stuart sent an invitation to Laura, and she said she would come at the very beginning. This pleased the guy greatly, and he went to the concert with great excitement. The draw decided that his group would perform first, and Stuart started to find Laura in the crowd. And then he saw her. The fragile girl clearly felt improper, but didn't show it. Laura was sitting at a table on the second floor, which offered a beautiful view of the stage. Stuart wanted to go to the dance floor and have a good time. However, he didn't dare to ask her to do so, as Laura was already quite tense. He decided to let her get used to such places first, and then let her dance. The band tuned their instruments and took the stage. Laura smiled immediately at Stuart, who also smiled. He greeted the audience and then turned directly to Laura, thanking her for coming to the concert and giving him a chance. The boys had rehearsed a lot, so the performance went great, and Stuart hurried to Laura. However, an unpleasant surprise awaited him. Some drunk man was standing at the girls' table. Laura clearly didn't want to talk to him and was pressing herself into her chair. "Hey," Stuart shouted. "Any problems?" Laura gratefully looked at him. "What problems?" I'm just getting to know this girl." The drunkard barely spoke. "Go away, this is my girl. Or do you want to sort it out outside?" Blood was pounding in Stuart's ears. He was clenching his fists, preparing for the fight. This was his first serious fight in his life. He had fought with someone else in school once, but was usually a very calm guy who never got into trouble. And now he was about to fight for Laura. No, I'm leaving. No problems." The man held his hands up and stumbled away. "Wow, I didn't think you were a chivalry," smiled Laura. "It's not chivalry. Anyone would have done the same." Stuart shrugged. He didn't want to tell her that this could have been his first and last fight. "But not my ex." Interest shone in Laura's eyes. "You've changed a lot during this time." "Is that good or bad?" "It's good." The girl smiled and moved closer to Stuart. With small steps over the next few months, Stuart achieved his goal of winning Laura's heart. He took her to the movies, restaurants, and even found a car museum that amused her. Stuart wanted to show her that their interests could be shared, and he himself gradually became interested in the car business. The documents for the merger of the companies were ready, but Stuart kept delaying the marriage. He wanted to do everything out of love, not calculation. Mr. Hamilton did not rush his son, especially since he saw that Stuart was not going to change his decision. The guy recorded several songs of his band, and his performances became paid. Of course, it didn't bring in millions yet, but the ambitious guy believed that everything was ahead. Besides, Stuart began to understand the intricacies of the car business, not without his father's help, of course, but now Mr. Hamilton was confident about the future of his business and his son. Laura saw all the changes happening to Stuart and could not believe her eyes. In just a few months, the boy turned into a real man. Once, Stuart invited Laura to an expensive restaurant. Romantic music, dim light, her favourite Italian cuisine. The guy had thought everything through. When Laura got out of the taxi, he was ready for his main battle. "I know my words won't be a surprise to you," he began, "but you have literally turned me into another person. I wanted to change for you so that you could be with me and not feel obliged to tolerate me all your life. I want everything to be different from what it seemed at the very beginning. I want us to get married for love." Stuart got down on one knee and opened the ring box. "Will you marry me?" Laura laughed happily and immediately hugged her fiancé. "Of course, Stuart. Of course I agree." 2 months later, they got married. The parents of the newlyweds could not be happier. They had thoughts that their children were unlikely to love each other and would probably not agree to a wedding. But Stuart and Laura looked happy, and smiles did not leave their faces throughout the holiday. Together, they began to manage their parents' businesses, and Laura was surprised that Stuart was just as good at understanding all the intricacies. Stuart chose to leave his band as a hobby and plunged fully into the world of cars. Thanks to his creative nature, he was full of ideas, and practical Laura chose the best of them. The couple formed the perfect tandem in the world of the car business. A year after the wedding, Laura excitedly told Stuart that they were expecting twins. Stuart was overjoyed and immediately told his father that it was time for him to prepare to babysit his grandchildren, which he planned to do in retirement. The couple had a boy and a girl. As the children grew up, Laura and Stuart only loved each other more. They were happy that a marriage of calculation turned into a marriage of love.